All right, in the book, we are up to page 180. This is ridiculous. And there's two sections left. One is on if statements and one is on switch. The if stuff we pretty much covered. So the way I'm going to show you the if stuff, talking about making decisions, is I'm going to show you this very quick program, and hopefully I didn't goof it up. But I went back to the program we've been doing the loops on, and I commented all the loop stuff out. Now, if I did this right, this is going to come in and it's going to say, please enter your size. S for small, M for medium, L for large, XL for extra large. And the default should be an M. Does that make sense? All right. And then I make it uppercase. Now, and I'm saying here, if it's equal to S, we're going to alert you're a small. If it says M, you're a medium. If it's L, you're a large. If it's XL, you're an extra large. Anything else, it should say invalid size input. Does that make sense? So, like I said, I'm not even sure if it works, but I think it does. So let's just run through the gamut. S, you're a small. Good. Okay, I probably should have put it in a loop, and I didn't, but that's all right. So M, you're medium. That's good. L, you're large. That's good. XL, you're an extra large. That's good. And then finally, I'll put in something that's out of whack. Hello. Invalid size input. Does that make sense? Now, one thing about this that you may or may not have thought of before when you look at this, first of all, anytime you have an if, anytime, it's never, ever mandatory that you have an else. It's never mandatory. But if there's just an if and then there's no else, if the if isn't true, nothing happens. Does that make sense? Second, if there's an if and an else, then what comes after the if must execute, or what comes after the else must execute. One of them must, but only one of them can. Does that make sense? You know, and again, no, all kidding aside, I mean, this just came into my head. Stupid example, but I'm going to give it anyway. So you're all first graders. It's first day of class, okay? And we're going to assume for a second that half of you are female. So I walk you over to the bathrooms. And I say, if your gender is male, you go in that bathroom. Else, you go in that bathroom. And again, I'm not talking about being politically correct. And after I started to saying, I thought, geez, now what is that, North Carolina, what they're doing? I don't care. But you get what I'm saying, correct? So the idea is you either walk into one bathroom or you walk into the other. If we said if your gender is male, you go into that bathroom and there was no else, I think the females would probably be a little bit upset, type of an idea. Also, if you're going to have else ifs, in some programming languages, not JavaScript, in some programming languages, you smash the two words together into one. All right, so it looks like this, but notice when I do this, you can tell it doesn't take it because it's not blue anymore. Not only that, in some programming languages, you don't say else if, you say elif. Don't ask me why. I didn't write them. All right? But this one, again, we went through this, and the first time we did it, I put it in S. So it did this because that was true, and it skipped all of this. Does that make sense to everyone? Then we did it again, and we put in an M. So we skipped this, we did that, and we skipped all of this. Does that make sense to everyone? Then we came in and we put in a large, so we skipped this, we skipped this, we did this, we skipped this. Does that make sense to everyone? And finally we put in an XL. So we skipped, we skipped, we skipped, we did it, and then we skipped. Then finally we did it one more time, I put in hello. We skip this, we skip this, we skip this, we skip this, and we did this. Does all that make sense? Because that's all there is to else, if-else logic. All right? But I want to show you another way we can write that same code. Doesn't always work, and I want to explain what I mean by doesn't always work in just a second. So I'm going to comment out everything that I just put in for these ifs. Everything. And I'm going to use a new statement we haven't looked at before that's called the switch. So I'm going to say this. Switch, gotta spell it right, switch size. Oops. The whole switch has to be inside of curly braces. And I say case S, and I can steal that. And then I have to use the word break. Case M, you're a medium, and break. I'm going to steal a little bit of this code here. Paste that in. Small, medium, we had what? Large. And XL. Now on the bottom, if we want to do something, if none of those was true, we put in the word default. And I'm going to want to put in invalid size inputted. Break. All right, I'll come right back to it, but let's run it and see if I broke anything or if it still works. S, you're small. M, you're medium. L, you're large. XL, XL, you're an extra large. And garbage, invalid size input. All right, so what you saw here, you don't have to write this down, you can always go back and watch the tape if you want to, was I showed you how to take something and do it as a series of if-else ifs with an else on the end, and then how you can do the same code by using what's called a switch statement. Okay? So what you switch on in here can be almost anything. And this is like saying if size equal S, do this. Else, if size equal M, do this. Else, if size equal L, do this. Else, if size equals XL, do this. Else, and then the last one. All right? So you might look at that and go, I kind of like that better. It's easier to read. All right? But remember before when I showed you this? 90 to 100 equal A. 80 to 89 equal B. I'm not going to do the rest. Remember that? If I wanted to write that with an if, I could say if I wanted to be really literal here, I could say if grade is greater than or equal to 90 and grade is less than or equal to 100. All right, so if I wanted to do that, okay, letter grade equal A as an example. All right? I can't do that up here. If I want to do it with a case, I have to say case 90, case 91, case 92, and just pretend I kept going all the way to case 100. See the difference? All right. You can't use ranges in JavaScript case. Now, if you're working with a language like Visual Basic, you can put ranges in there. You can say case 90 to 100. You can't do that in JavaScript. All right? So when you're working with ranges, no. If you've got a limited number of values like we have here, a lot of times people end up using case statements because they're a little easier to read and figure out kind of logistically what's going on. You'll notice this is another example. If you look up on the screen here, I'm going to come up, I'm leaving off, I'm going to comment out that last curly. All right, everybody see what I just did? I did that on purpose. I'm commenting that out. All right, I'm going to save this, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to run it again. Well, nothing's happening. Well, you know why. But if I come in here and hit F12, notice sooner or later it's going to come in here. It's going to say, it says unexpected end of input on line 80. It's like, why was it all the way down there? Because it reached the bottom of the function and it didn't find a matching curly brace. All right? I'm trying to just show you a little bit how you can use the console. That wasn't a great example, but just so you see it. All right? I don't know how yet because it's not written, but when you take your next test a week from Friday, I don't know if you'll do a new program, if you'll keep working with a BMI thing. I don't know. But that will be part of it, and it will use arrays, and somewhere in there it will have a switch statement. I guarantee you it'll have both of those. But then I'm going to write a program, and I'm going to say, make this sucker work. And I'm going to put a bunch of errors in there. Some of them will be real simple. You left a semicolon off there. You put a beginning double quote, you didn't put an ending double quote in. Some of them, they're going to make you scratch your head. And I'm doing it on purpose because you have to start to learn how to debug. So you'll have to use, and we're going to go through some tools in the next chapter, but just so you know what's coming, so to speak. All right? And that, to my knowledge, that's it for the chapter. Let's, if you would please, let's turn up to page 202 in your book. If you don't have the book, you can look up on the screen here. Oh, I don't want to do this. Come on. There. 202. All right. So let's quickly go over these review questions. Number 1. What is the correct syntax for creating an empty array named tax rules? Somebody tell me. What's number 1? C. The first one is the curly braces. That actually is the way you do it in some languages, not JavaScript. All right, the second one is going to create a non-array variable. The third one's correct. The fourth one, I don't think it'll run. Okay, number 2. Which of the following statements, so what did we say? Number 1 was C. Number 2, which of the following statements adds the value oak as the third element in a trees array? Again, C. Remember, the first element is element 0. So the first two are C and C. Number 3, which of the following properties returns the number of elements in an array? A. Length gives you the number of array elements. So if I had an array of size 10, it would return 10. Number 4, I guarantee you, this one is on the test. Which characters are used to create a command block? Not an array, a command block. You might be confused on that, but the answer is C. Number 5, you track the progress of a loop, all right, the progress of a loop with what? Anybody want to guess? What? Counter. That's what I'd say. 5 is A, counter. Number 6, the statements in a blank statement always execute at least once. Which of those loops? B, the do while. Number 7, if you don't include code that changes the counter value in a loop statement, you get put in what's called what? An infinite loop. D. Number 8, when is a for statement initialization expression executed? Huh? Anybody want to guess on that one? A. You only initialize variables once in a for loop, and that's at the beginning. So the key word there is begins executing. Number 10, the blank statement halts a looping statement and restarts the loop. So it doesn't get you out of the loop, all right? It just skips the rest of that iteration. So what is number 10? Well, I guess they skipped 9, but for right now, what is 10? Correct. Now let's go backwards. 9, the parentheses at the start of a what expression or statement can include code that initializes a counter and changes its value. D, 4. Number 11, as we turn the page. An if statement can include multiple statements provided that they execute after. That's a really poorly loaded question. Let's just say D. All right. One thing I didn't show you, please look up on the screen here, because I never mean to not show you things, so I'm going to show you quick. All right, I'm going to comment this whole thing out that we were working on here, and I don't even know if I'm going to write code, but I want you to see this. All right, so we comment out all this. All right. So I'm going to say here, I'm making this up. Var age equals parse int prompt what is your age, and we're going to default it to make it 21. That doesn't mean anything here, but just so you know, var party equals prompt what party are you, and we'll default that to Republican. Okay? Does it make sense when you look at this? You can have a certain age and be a Democrat, or a certain age and be a Republican. Does that make sense? All right. So if let's say I want to do a mass mailing, and I only want to do it to people who are over 21 or over, and are Republican. Does that make sense? So I'd say something like this. If, and I'm putting more parens in than you probably need, but age is greater than or equal to 21, and party is equal to Republican. And I'm just going to put a comment here that says, do mass mailing. That make sense? All right, now, if I run this program and I put 20 in there, that's false, correct? So it doesn't even make the second check. It doesn't check it. All right, if I come in there and I put in 37, but I put in Democrat for party, then this part of it is true, but that part will be false, so it doesn't do it. Does all that make sense? All right, but what if I write it like this? I'm going to grab this same code that we have here, copy it to the clipboard. Why? Because I'm going to comment it out, and then I'm going to put it back in again. I know that sounds stupid, but bear with me a second. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do this. Okay. Now what I have are what are called, this was just one loop condition. This is what's called a nested loop. That's, or a nested condition. It's an if within an if. I only get into this, I only check your status if your age is greater than or equal to 21. Does that make sense? Here, it's pretty much the same thing, but I'm writing it as one condition. Here I'm writing it as two conditions. When you put a condition within a condition, that's nesting. You can nest anything. You can have an if within an if within an if. You can have a while within an if, or an if within a while, or a for within a while, or a while within a do while, etc. So you can nest anything you may want to nest. All right? And there are times when writing it like this will probably mean that it'll run faster than writing it like this. Not always. Sometimes it really is, as the old saying goes, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Really and truly doesn't matter. All right, but I wanted you to see that so you at least heard that term. All right, so number 12, a simple if-else statement enables you to specify code for how many alternatives? Just if and else. How many alternatives? What is number 12? Nope. What? I'd say 2. If, then you do this. Else, you do that. Right? This or that. Number 13. I don't know why they... Oh, this is equivalent to the question mark colon operator that we had before, which said, if it's true, do this, else do that, which to me would say it's number 13. Hopefully you agree with that. 14, a switch statement compares the value of an expression to the value contained in, we didn't go over the terminology, but 14 is B, case label. 15, when the, going here, when the value returned by a switch statement does not match a case label, then you execute what comes in. What was at the bottom of our switch? What is the answer to 15? Nope. For a case, default. D. Number 16, what is the difference between an array and a standard variable? The difference is a standard variable is scalar. It can only hold one value at a time. An array can hold multiple values under the same name. Understand the difference? Number 17, provide the code to access the value of the fourth element of the project team array. Well, let's just write that. All right. So the array is project team. Oops. Team, and we want the fourth element, which is what? 3, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. So that right there should be the answer to number 17. Project team sub 3. Number 18. Explain what causes an infinite loop. What causes an infinite loop is not changing the value of the loop control variable or changing it incorrectly, making it go down instead of up or vice versa. Number 19, what does an else if replace? Not sure exactly what they mean by that. All right, but for now, let's just say that an else if can be used instead of like a case or a switch statement with different cases. All right, now one thing I didn't show you, and it's the answer to number 20, and I want to show it to you in code. I'm going to comment this back out again. Oops. Get rid of all this for just a second. All right. Remember when we did this? I'm going to uncomment this. The one that we just did. No one asked, but you know why these words are important? What does break mean? Get the hell out. So I'm going to remove all the breaks. I'm purposely removing every break from here. It's not mandatory that you put a break after the default, and the default must come at the end. All right? But I'm going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to run the program again. And I'm going to put in S. What's going to print? That's correct. You're a small, you're a medium, you're a large, you're an extra large, invalid size inputted. That's fall through. So fall through is when you don't put a default statement at the end of each case. Okay? I didn't know any other way to show it to you than that. So tomorrow when you come in here, we're going to go through a payroll example with arrays. We should be able to do that, I think, in about an hour. The rest of the period, remember I told you this before, so you may or may not remember, but someplace in this mess, and I think it's in here. But somewhere in here, I did email to everybody. It actually might be in here. All right, everybody has the Chapter 3 in your stuff. I emailed to you the study guide for Chapter 3. So tomorrow morning, we're going to go over, first thing, we're going to go over an array example. Second thing, we're going to go over that study guide for Chapter 3. All right, then the rest of the period will be lab. All of Wednesday will be lab. All of Thursday will be lab. On Friday morning, I can't force you to do this, and I wouldn't even if I could. On Friday morning at about 5 to 9 or so, I'm walking over to the other building. That's where the job fair is. I would suggest that even if you're not going to apply for a job right now, you walk over there to see what they're looking for. If you say, I don't want to do it, then don't do it. But I'll probably be going, the other thing is they have free food, right, which is a reason for going over there. But that's one of the reasons I'm going over there. But the other thing is, all right, you get to see what people are all about, all right, for about a half an hour or so. You can leave, you can go there for 5 minutes and walk through it if you want. At least you've seen it, all right? And if you can imagine, because it's only going to be in about 2 rooms, the one in St. Louis is like that on steroids. All right, literally, that automotive building that they have in St. Louis, I didn't realize how big it is. If you told me it was the size of literally 5 or 6 football fields, I'd believe you. And it was filled with different employers. They had like 500 employers there. 300, I think it was, I'm sorry. And they're going to have about 50 here at this one. All right. So no test this week, other than Thursday, again, we'll have the written test for Chapter 3. Next week, so a week from now, on Monday, we're going to go over Chapter 4, which is all about debugging. We should be able to do that in a period. All right? And just like we did here, we'll go over at the end of the chapter. We will go over, I will have a test review for you. Tuesday will be lab. Wednesday will be lab. Thursday we'll do the test, the written. Friday will be your next hands-on test. So Friday, I think that makes it like, I don't know, first, like the 17th, something like that. 10th, I'm sorry. It's not this Friday, next Friday, so it'll be the 10th. That'll be your next test. Make sense? Then 2 weeks from now, we'll be going over Chapter 5, which is the hardest chapter in the book up till this point. It's on the DOM. All right? After we get done with Chapter 5, we'll go through Chapter 6, which is on forms. The good news is I don't have to explain a lick to you about forms, right? We'll just talk about how to use JavaScript to validate forms. Okay? And then after that, we've got left 8 and 12. 8 is arrays in detail and strings in detail, and 12 is jQuery. All right, I guarantee you that last week of class, the entire last week, you're going to have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to work on your portfolios. All right? And we will talk about the portfolios if you care. Again, if you don't, fine. But if you care, am I right in assuming that at one time or another, every single person in this room has gone out to your inside ranking account? Am I right in assuming that? All right, for no other reason, you go out there to check your grades and stuff, all right? But the stuff that's out there, in fact, let's see, where is it? Courses, that course. All right, I'm going to switch to your view. So this is student view. All right, change view. If I go down somewhere in here, I don't know where it is, but there it is. I think it's portfolio, and I think it's that, but we'll find out. This should be 1 page long. Yes, it is. I am now going to run off 9 copies so that you all have one, and I do as well. This is what you're going to be doing at the end of the semester. You're going to be creating a Bootstrap portfolio for yourself that's got examples. It's an electronic portfolio of examples of your work. All right? I will set up for each one of you an account on Rankin's server. And when I set up that account on Rankin's server, you will be able to go out there, put your portfolio out there on Rankin's server. All right? That way, when it's a year from now and we go to the job fair, and my hope is that a year from now, even though you will be in your 3rd semester, that when they had a job fair in St. Louis a couple weeks ago, my hope is when they do that, every one of you, because they provide transportation from here, will go down there to that job fair. Start circulating resumes. There's at least one of my students that he's not gotten an offer, but they told me, they meaning the company that interviewed him, make sure that that guy applies here in May, because he's at least getting an interview. All right, so it never hurts. Now, this was written by Evan, not you, the Evan in St. Louis. So it may, the verbiage may change a little bit when we get to that point. But again, the idea is you will create a Bootstrap project that's got examples of all of your what? Your HTML5, your CSS3, your JavaScript, your Bootstrap, and because we'll do it by the end of the class, your jQuery. Okay? And I will, again, I've already shown you some examples. I'll show those to you again when we get to that point. I'm showing you this now. This is 10% of your grade, basically. All right? So even if you got an A going in here and you screw this up, so let's say you got a 99 average, all right, and you don't do this for whatever reason, now you're down to an 89. You don't get an A anymore. That's not a threat. I'm just telling you. So you will have time to work on this, but for sure you will have the entire last week to work on it. You can start thinking about what you want to do now. All right, how you sketch out what you want to do, etc. All right, that's all I've got. And that's good because we only have 10 minutes.